Alright, what's up everyone? It's so good to see you guys again, and I'm back today with a new fundamental series video. And in this video, we're going to be covering the squat. Now there's so many variations of the squat, so for simplicity's sake, we're just going to do the air squat for today. And as usual, I'm going to start out the video with an overview of the movement. Okay, before we begin, you must be wondering, Brand, why are you teaching me how to squat? Everyone knows how to squat. Well, if you're squatting for, squatting's sake, then I wouldn't be too particular. But if you're doing it as an exercise, then I would take more attention to the details, because there are many ways that you can get it wrong and many ways that you can get injured. So let's begin. How do we squat? Well, first we take a shoulder width stance, and then we're going to start this motion by unlocking our hips. So we're going to push our hips back, and then we're going to descend down. So this initial unlocking of hip is critical, and then from here, after we unlock the hip, we're going to let our hips descend straight down. So the hips should go down all the way until you reach the bottom of the squat, and then coming back up using the power from your quads, and then coming up as you want to lock out. You're going to use the power from your glutes to lock out, just like how we do the deadlift, where we use our glutes to lock out at the end. Now I'm going to show you guys again. I'm going to unlock my hip, sit down through the legs, and coming back up like so. Okay, now that I've showed you how it's done, let's try it together. Alright, so let's get into the standing position first, and then now you'll be wondering, how far do I put my feet? Alright, I suggest somewhere around shoulder width, but later on I'll explain more about where your feet should be. So we're going to put right now shoulder width. Now together, let's now unlock the hips by pushing our hips back. Alright, and then next we're going to lower our hips down, bending the hips and the knees at the same time. As we come down, we're going to make sure that we keep our torso as upright as possible. So as you can see, I just adjusted my position because I was leaning forward too much. So now I come down, I'm in the bottom position. As you rise, I want you to rise with your hips and your body at the same time. Coming up, and before you end, use your glutes, thrust it forward and lock out the squat. Let's try that together one more time. Alright, now we go, unlock the hip, squat, go down, bring the hips straight down, down, down. Make sure your knees track over the toes, down to the bottom of the squat. Now hold it here with me. Now check your position. Make sure your knees are in line with your toes. Body is upright and not leaning forward. Now, upright body, push up with your hips moving the same time as the rest of your body, and glutes to lock out. Awesome. Now let's get into more details. Alright, we're going to start by discussing stance width. How far should you put your feet? This is going to depend on two things: what you're trying to achieve from the squat and your flexibility. So in general, the wider that you put your feet, you're going to use more glutes, and the closer you put your feet, you're going to use more quads. So talking about flexibility, let's look at the squat. Alright, so when you try to squat down and your feet are wide, what your legs are able to do is to let the hips come through and between the legs, and this is going to keep you nice and upright. However, when your feet are narrower, as you come down, you realize there's nowhere for your hips to go, and your hip has to move backwards. When your hip moves backwards, your center of gravity moves backwards, and you lose your balance. So your body will want to keep its balance, correct? So in order to keep its balance, your body will do one of two things. Firstly, it will shift forward. So as you shift forward, like this, you realize that there will be a point where your body cannot shift forward more. And that is because of your ankle flexibility. If you have a lot of ankle flexibility, you wouldn't have much problem and you'll still be able to maintain upright. But if your body cannot move forward anymore to compensate for the weight from your hips, what's going to happen is you're going to start leaning forward to balance. And when you do that, as you can see, my lower back is rounded, my thorax spine is rounded, and this is going to set you up for lots of injuries. Now the other thing that your body might try to do to balance is this. Have you seen people squat and then the heels come up and you end up on your tippy toes? Why this happens is because it helps to lean your body forward more to balance from the weight of the hip. And this also stems from your ankle flexibility. So neither of these situations are ideal, and you want to find a stance width that allows you to squat with your body upright but at the same time not too wide. Generally what I recommend is that you start from outside, so you start wide and slowly come in until you realize that you're starting to lean too much, and then you find that sweet spot over there. So for me, because my ankle mobility is quite limited, it's usually slightly outside of shoulder width. You can try it out for yourself. Well, now that you've found the perfect stance, what's next? Of course, is the knees. We have to look at how your knees track over your toes, because this can set you up for a lot of knee problems if you don't do this right. What do I mean by this? So as you squat, you need to bend your knees such that it goes directly over your feet and not inside or outside. So how do we find that perfect angle? There's an easy hack to that. What you're going to do is you're going to stand on your heels, and then once you're on your heels, what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze your glutes, and this is going to cause your feet to turn to a natural position. So standing at shoulder width, you go on your heels and squeeze your glutes, and you can see my feet turn out to its natural position where the knees track over the toes. Remember, be very conscious about how your knees goes over your feet. Now the next thing of course is your body posture, and we don't want any bad body posture here. So what I mean by bad body posture, of course if you're rounded forward, if you're leaning, that's bad. So how do we make ourselves more conscious about how our body is when we're squatting? So of course we always come back to the chest up cue. So as you're coming down, you want to keep your chest up facing forward and come down like this and up. And what you don't want is for it to cave in as you lean forward like this, and this is a horrible posture for you to have. So from here at the bottom, you can always correct yourself. Chest up, face the front, and come back up. Now another common problem is how you're initiating the squat. So the right way to initiate a squat would be to, as I said, bend at your hips first, and then bend your hips and knees at the same time, and come up. The problem is too many people start bending at the knees first, and what you see is this happening. So they will bend the knees, and then this puts a lot of stress on the knee joint. We want to load the weight on the hips because our hips are strong, but our knees are just not meant for so much load, especially if you're loading up a barbell. I also want to address a common misconception, which is the fact that your knees are not supposed to cross your toes. You hear this all the time, and this stems from the problem that I just mentioned. You see, when people start to bend at the knees first, the knees really passes the toes, and when this happens, there's a lot of stress on the knee and you can get injured from it. But in so many squats, whether you look at Olympic lifters doing their squats, you'll see the knees pass their toes and they're totally fine with that. Why is that so? Because if they're loading the weight on hips by starting bending at the hips and then coming down, it is okay for the knees to pass the toes a little bit, because that is just how your body balances itself. Now before we end, I want to give you guys a checklist so you can make sure that you're doing the squat right. Now, first one, as you're squatting, is your body upright? I cannot emphasize how much and how important this is. Now when you're doing your air squats, you might not feel it, but if you're going to start to load up your squats, you're going to start to feel it in your lower back if you lean too far forward. A lot of times, people lean too far forward because they follow this common rule that you hear a lot of people tell you when you're squatting. They say, imagine like you're sitting back on a chair. So when you're imagining that, the problem is you're going to stick your butt out very far, and to compensate, your body is going to lean very far forward. So don't do that. When you squat, you want to keep in mind that you're squatting through your legs. Alright, now that you've checked if your body posture is upright, now you're going to check whether your knees are going along the direction of your feet. The last thing to check when you're coming up from your squat is your hips coming up at the same time as the rest of your body. Now you might not have this problem now, but once again when you start to load it up and you start to struggle to push the weight from the bottom position, your hips are going to start to rise before the rest of your body does, and that's going to put some excessive forward lean once again. Okay guys, I think I've covered quite a lot of ground today, and I really encourage you to just try whatever I've just said out for yourself, because watching the video is not going to help you improve. So try it out for yourself and let me know if you face any other issues that I haven't covered in this video. I hope you guys have really enjoyed this video and this has been beneficial to you. If you have any questions, as usual, DM me on my Instagram or Facebook and I'll be happy to reply you. So I'll see you guys in the next video.